Ladies and gentlemen, now that Bitcoin is bouncing, now that Bitcoin has broken above a critical level at $118,000 and is surging towards its all-time high, we can start to shift our attention towards Ethereum and the altcoin market. But on the topic of Ethereum and the altcoin market, there's a big kind of question, which is why haven't altcoins already begun moving massively? Why haven't we seen an altcoin season already? And there's two main reasons, in my view, as to why that hasn't occurred. And we'll look into both of them today. One of them is actually the nature of Bitcoin price action in this cycle, structurally speaking. And the other is basically the sheer quantity of altcoins that are being created on a daily basis is just like nothing we've ever seen before. But these two reasons are not to take away from the reality. The reality at this point is that Bitcoin is leading the market in a kind of, I guess, almost symbolic way. Bitcoin has to move in order for the rest of the market to move, but when Bitcoin moves, it's really Ethereum that is taking the brunt of those gains. And that has been the case since April. Seems like at this point it's continuing to be the case. We'll look into that today, and we'll look into a potential for some sort of altcoin season, even if it's different to other cycles. All of this is occurring and all of this analysis is happening at a very critical time for the market. We are in the month of October, which according to the regular 4-year cycle should be where Bitcoin tops out. So it'll be very, very interesting to see what happens there. If we don't top out in October, if we continue into 2026, for example, that is going to have major impacts on Bitcoin trends on a macro scale. And if we do top out in October, that of course means we have very limited amount of time remaining. So anything we want to be seeing on Ethereum and altcoins needs to happen very, very quickly. Luckily, Ethereum and altcoins do generally run a little bit longer than Bitcoin. That's also something we'll dive into. Before we get into it, go ahead and check out the Bitunix Exchange. It's a global exchange. It's got no restrictions based on location. It's non-KYC, so you don't need to worry about any of that. You can just get on here with an email address and a password and use the exchange at very low fees. On top of that, it's never been hacked before. Not a single security breach in over 5 years or close to 5 years of trading data. So a safe exchange, a global exchange, you can't go wrong. Use my link down below to sign up and you'll get a 15% lifetime trading fee discount. That is probably the best way you can help out the channel. And probably, to be honest, if you're actively trading, the best way you can help out yourself as well. Getting on a great exchange is a non-negotiable thing in cryptocurrency. Use that link to sign up. Appreciate it. Let's get into the content. Right, so with Bitcoin in the clear, as we've discussed many times now, Bitcoin is in a macro move. It's broken $118,000, which was the POC on the volume profile, the critical point of control level. It's also broken, again, $118,000 was a region in which we had major macro resistance coming right backwards in pink from 2017 and 2021's all-time highs. These levels cannot be overstated. They're very, very important levels. It looks like Bitcoin is basically in the clear until something like $127,000. That's where it should be facing its next resistance, somewhere around there. So we've got some breathing room on Bitcoin. We are looking quite good. The structures for support are intact. We can kind of almost shift our attention away from Bitcoin a little bit here. Not too much, because if we start approaching this critical level, for example, around 128 to 130, then of course we need to be very vigilant because that could potentially be a top. But right now at 122, it's all good, right? We're in the clear here. So we can start looking at altcoins a bit more. And as has been the case for quite a long period of time now, since April, really, we see since April, Bitcoin's moved upwards about 66%, whereas Ethereum since April has moved upwards about 250%. So you can see very clearly it's Ethereum that we should be paying attention to. The broader altcoin market, you might ask, what has the broader altcoin market done? Well, the broader altcoin market, as per the Total 3, which measures all altcoins essentially, is up about 80% since April. So altcoin market and Bitcoin are pretty much matching each other, whereas Ethereum is pulling ahead massively. That's kind of the trend right now. The altcoin market is probably starting to pull away a little bit, but it's not quite there yet. It's still within a structure of resistance. It's still below 2021 all-time high resistance. It's just not looking too clear for the broader altcoin market at this point. Really, it is Ethereum that we should be paying attention to. And as for Ethereum, it's this white line on a short-term level that we need to be looking at, and this critical support zone in green that we should be looking at to the downside. There's not really too much else to say about it other than, it's looking good. But the big question emerges, which is, well, what's going on here? This is a little bit strange to not be seeing altcoins moving massively at this point in the cycle. We know what's happened historically. Historically speaking, from when Bitcoin dominance has started dropping, to when we've seen the end of the altcoin season. That's taken, historically speaking, around 320 days, okay? In fact, exactly, roughly 320 days. In 2017, it took 320 days of an altcoin season. In 2021, it took 320 days from the Bitcoin dominance drop to the Bitcoin top. And this time, if it was to take 320 days, and if we were to play out by the 4-year cycle, we would have had to have started altcoin season in November last year. Now, in November last year, we actually did see a very small altcoin outperformance, but it never actually resulted in a macro breakdown on Bitcoin dominance. We never saw a full-blown altcoin season. So why have we not seen an altcoin season yet? And secondly, will we see one? Well, there's two reasons. One of the reasons, which I think actually, believe it or not, even though it sounds like a very, very strong reason, I think it's probably the more minor reason. But one of the reasons is the sheer quantity of altcoins that are being created on a daily basis is absolutely unprecedented. We are seeing roughly 49,000 altcoins being created at a whim per day. This is like nothing we've ever seen before. If we look at how many altcoins are tracked on CoinMarketCap, which is a pretty good representation of how many altcoins there are, by the way, we look back in, for example, 2021, the last time we saw an altcoin season, it was about 20,000 altcoins. Okay, if we include microcaps, include coins that weren't tracked at that point, let's just say 100,000, right? Let's just say it's 5 times higher than where it was in CoinMarketCap. Right now, we have 22 million altcoins, and the vast majority of these altcoins have been created in the last year. A year ago, we had 4 million. Now we have 22 million, right? Altcoins are popping up out of thin air, and that is diluting the altcoin market, which has implications in the sense that obviously, most of these altcoins aren't being touched. No one's really touching most of these altcoins, but think about it, guys. Altcoins rely on hype. Altcoins, perform well. And altcoins performing well leads to altcoins performing well because people hear about the altcoin doing well, they get interested in crypto, they buy altcoins. Other people hear about crypto doing well, they buy all. It's a domino effect, right? It's a snowball effect. When you have this many coins, although the broader altcoin market may be getting the same amount of attention to some degree, although the broader altcoin market, although the total cryptocurrency market cap for altcoins might be at the same level it was in peak 2021, in fact, it's at all-time highs right now, just barely, right? The fact of the matter is that money is spread much, much, much thinner, and there's much, much, much less opportunities for 100x altcoins to pop up out of nowhere. And then there's much, much less news stories and Twitter posts about how well altcoins are doing, and much less retail gets exposed to cryptocurrency. So although, the amount of altcoins being created here is not necessarily ruining the altcoin market, it's not like people are selling their altcoins because of this. It is diluting the altcoin market and decreasing the amount of tension the altcoin market gets in social media, in mainstream news, etc., and that decreases the amount of people who throw their cash at altcoins, right? Basically. I think actually the stronger reason, even though that is certainly a reason, the stronger reason is simply the structure of the way Bitcoin's been moving in this cycle in comparison to prior cycles, quite simply. Right, we look at prior cycles. Let's go to the weekly chart here. I think this would be probably a better way to look at it. And let's just delete everything just so we can get a fresh slate. We look at 2017, which was the strongest altcoin season we've ever seen, quite clearly. And it was straight upwards, right? There was no room for breaks. Bitcoin was moving constantly. Not only was it moving constantly, it was moving sharply. Even when it was correcting, it was moving sharply, right? Even when it was correcting 40% in 2 weeks. This was brewing controversy in the news and social media, brewing hype, right? That's the key word, hype. Altcoins breed and rely on hype. If there's no hype, there's no altcoin season. Same thing in 2021. Hype, we went straight upwards. We consolidated for a bit. People thought, what's going to happen next? We've already seen this big move. What happens? We crashed massively, right? That breeds attention in the cryptocurrency market. And then we went upwards one more time and finished off. This time, we just have not seen that. This cycle, unfortunately, has been fundamentally different to the last 2 cycles. Now, by the way, difference is the norm, right? 2021 was not similar in structure to 2017. They were very different in structure, but they both had the key point: attention, engagement, and hype. We don't have that in this cycle. We just haven't had it at any point, unfortunately. What we've seen in this cycle is Bitcoin taking a step upwards, then taking a big, long breath of fresh air, a pause for 9 months, doing it again, 9 months, doing it again, 9 months. There haven't been these massive, catastrophically large moves followed by massive crashes. There's been big moves and then long corrections to the side. Big move, long correction. And during those long corrections, everyone gets really bored. Everyone stops paying attention to cryptocurrency. Everyone certainly does not touch the altcoin market. So those are the 2 reasons, in my view, why altcoin season has not happened in the way it usually happens this time around. But the key point is, well, those two reasons, although they definitely tell us that altcoin season has probably changed forever at this point, we probably won't see altcoin seasons like we saw in 2021 and 2017 ever again. Certainly not within the bounds of the 4-year cycle. You know, if the cycle changes or breaks, cool, that's a different story. We don't know about that. But within the bounds of the cycle, yeah, altcoin season as we knew it is probably changed forever. But that doesn't mean we can't see altcoin seasons. It just means that you need to shift your definition of altcoin season. And altcoin season can no longer be identified by a massive sweeping altcoin pumps that last like months and months. No. An altcoin season could simply just be 2 or 3 weeks of altcoins doing absolutely exceptionally in comparison to Bitcoin, maybe a month, maybe 2 months, right? Much shorter period of time, much swifter, much more opportunistic. That certainly could still happen even this cycle. And I'll tell you why. Well, it's pretty clear we're on support. It's pretty clear as well that Ethereum is outperforming Bitcoin. The next step after that is generally altcoins outperforming Bitcoin. And it's becoming a little bit clearer that even though altcoins aren't doing dramatically better than Bitcoin since April, actually, if we look since June, we get a bit of a better idea of how altcoins are doing recently. You know, altcoins are up since June 56%, whereas since June, if we're just narrowing down the time frame here, Bitcoin is only upwards about 25%. So altcoins are doubling the performance of Bitcoin since June. So we can see as time progresses, as Bitcoin goes higher and higher, altcoins are actually pulling further and further away from it. And although we don't have much time left in this cycle, there's a couple of critical points here. Well, point number one is it doesn't take long for altcoin seasons to occur. You know, I know they've lasted a year on the last 2 occasions, but if you look closely, the vast majority of the Bitcoin dominance drops that occurred during these altcoin seasons happened in very short periods of time, right? In 2021, the vast majority of the altcoin season lasted from December through to May. That's a 5-month period, even more specifically from March through to May, which is a 2-month period. You know, we had these huge drops on Bitcoin dominance happening within a couple of weekly candle closes in 2017. So yeah, it might not be as long as 2017 or 2021. It might not even be as big as 2017 or 2021, but we can see it, and we can see something relatively significant. All it takes is a few weeks to drop quite massively on Bitcoin dominance and to see huge capital flows into altcoins. Now, obviously, if we see the 4-year cycle play out, which is a question, but it's certainly a very decent probability, you know, we will probably be topping as per 4-year cycle. Not probably, but the 4-year cycle says we will be topping in October. And so, you know, that's, again, a question of whether that will happen or not. But if it does happen, that means that we're coming towards the end of Bitcoin's moves, and Bitcoin would likely top after this current macro move, wherever that may take us, which means that we don't have much time left for the altcoin market. Well, the good news is altcoins don't generally top out with Bitcoin, right? Altcoins do generally run longer than Bitcoin. If we look at Ethereum as an example, Ethereum as a leader of the altcoin market, just in this example, what we see is, you know, we go back to 2021, and I can just fix the chart here a little bit. What we see is Ethereum running in the first half of 2021 an extra month, and not only that, but seeing the vast majority of its gains in that cycle during that extra month. That's quite interesting indeed. In 2017, the same thing. Ethereum running an extra month, and not only that, seeing about a 2x after Bitcoin had topped. So, you know, if we have, let's say 3 weeks left on Bitcoin, just hypothetically, 2 weeks, 3 weeks left on Bitcoin, again, guesswork here, we might actually have 6 or 7 weeks left on the altcoin market. So we do have time, and we don't need much time, but yeah, don't expect anything like what we've seen before. That, unfortunately, is just out of the question now. The market environment has dramatically changed. The only scenario I can see in which the altcoin market sees massive altcoin seasons like what we saw in 2017 and 2021 is if the cycle breaks and something entirely new occurs and there's an entirely new market structure that forms. But that's unpredictable, right? Because we've never been outside of a cycle before, and so we have no idea what that might entail. I stand by what I said at the start of the video. I'm looking at Bitcoin closely, especially that $128,000 to $130,000 resistance region, which I discussed extensively in yesterday's video. Go ahead and check that out if you don't know what I'm talking about. But my investment priority at this point is actually Ethereum, and might actually be altcoins if they start to pull away a little bit more. I want a little bit more evidence in the altcoin market. At this point, I'm still convinced that Ethereum is the best pick as per what the market is doing on a macro scale. So that's my opinion on the altcoin market at this point. Hopefully you found that video useful. Let me know if there's any other topics you want me to cover in regards to that. I might actually be doing a Q&A in a couple of days. So maybe, keep an eye out on the YouTube community post page and you can get your question answered about crypto, altcoins, whatever it might be, right? Thank you for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed. Leave a like, comment, subscribe. If you're on mobile, by the way, hit the hype button. That's a new feature that YouTube has that helps out as well. Check out the Bitunix Exchange if you're interested. It's global, no restrictions based on location. It's never been hacked before. It's got very low trading fees and everything you would expect on a major exchange. I use this personally. It is my main exchange. And that says something, right? I'm a career trader. I've been doing this for years. And if you trust the content, I assume you want to be on a good exchange as well. So use that link down below to sign up for a 15% exclusive trading fee discount. I appreciate that, and you will get on what I think to be a good exchange with that link. Thank you. Appreciate it. Have a good one, guys.